What is up, everybody, and welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm Jacob Turner. He's Andrew Jones, and we're here for another episode of This Week in the ACC, the Week 10 edition of This Week in the ACC, as we're going to be looking ahead and previewing. I use the word previewing pretty loosely because we don't really preview these games. We're going to talk about all the games this week in the league, also talk about Carolina's non-conference foes that they played earlier this year, who they're playing this weekend as well. So a lot to talk about is, Carolina not in as good a position of competing and potentially winning the ACC as they were a couple weeks ago. But AJ, still not. It's still possible. Let's be realistic. There's still a lot of football left to be played. And if we know anything about this league, anything can happen to any team in the league, maybe barring Florida State, basically, based on how they're playing right now. So a lot of games to talk about. Before we do that, big thank you to Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring this show. We'll talk about them a little bit later on. Stay tuned for that. But AJ, let's dive into the matchups now. Let's just dive head first into that. I separated these as we always do. There's 8 matchups total in the league. We don't talk about Carolina's matchup, so we're going to talk about essentially 7 here. We'll go ahead with the first 4 right now, starting on Thursday night. Wake Forest at Duke, 7:30 p.m. kickoff in Wallace-Wade Stadium. Interesting matchup, in-state teams. Always an interesting one to pay attention to. Friday night, Boston College at Syracuse, 7:30 p.m. kickoff in Syracuse. Syracuse looking to, get back on track a little bit, and BC, winning some football games right now. So credit to them for figuring a little bit of something out in Boston. Saturday's matchup, first matchup of Saturday, 15th ranked Notre Dame at a Clemson team that is just struggling. Dabo's all over the news with his quotes and press conferences. It's just a program right now that is very intriguing to follow from a distance as we are over here. Campbell at North Carolina, like I mentioned, we're not going to count that one. That's noon kickoff in Kenan Stadium. Already previewed that in the football show. Go check that one out. But the last one of this slate, Georgia Tech at Virginia, 2:00 kickoff at Scott Stadium. Can Georgia Tech win 2 games in a row, AJ? Or are they just going to keep going up and down like they've done all season? Virginia competing as well, took Miami to overtime. So can they maybe figure out something and beat Georgia Tech? That's a game I'm intrigued about. And if I'm betting on that game, I'm betting on Virginia if you're looking at the trends of how Georgia Tech's season's gone and maybe how Virginia's played over the last couple games. So when you look at these matchups, AJ, I think the biggest one that stands out, it's got to be Notre Dame at Clemson, right? Because besides that, not the most exciting slate to open up the weekend also.
Yeah, Wake at Duke is a little bit interesting because it's in state. And
Thursday night, too.
Wake's a little down from what it's been. But, Duke where's Duke right now?
Good question.
A week ago, 2 weeks ago, I thought, man, that's just a really good team. And offensively, there's trouble. The issues they have, injuries in the offensive line. Everyone wants to anoint Mike Elko is going to take the next big job somewhere. But if I'm an AD, I got a little red flag about how he's handled Riley Leonard.
Yeah.
I would have it's easy for me to say sitting here when I've got nothing riding on the line to say I wouldn't have played him in Tallahassee or Louisville, but I wouldn't have played him in Tallahassee.
If he's not healthy, what are you putting him out there for?
I could be wrong on that, but
I get
from my vantage point,
I get it from some ways because Duke's trying to compete for something with where they're at. But if he's not healthy, what's the point in playing him?
Yeah, you've got so much more of the season to play.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And games to win, and it's a process. You're just not going to skyrocket overnight. Not when you're Duke.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think Duke probably wins this game. And just
you would think so. Yeah,
Wake's got some quarterback issues, and for Duke, it's tough having a Thursday night game after being on the road as well on Saturday.
I guess it's good for the matchup afterwards, though. Duke, Carolina.
I don't like Thursday games for teams. It's too quick to play after a game, and I like them covering a team. I wish Carolina played Thursday night, so that would give me Saturday to watch college football.
Would be nice, wouldn't it? Would be nice. Man, that would be nice.
I know. I don't have any college football Saturdays this year because of one open date. I was back in Virginia at my high school reunion thing. Mm-hmm. So, Friday night, who's it? BC
at Syracuse.
Jeff Hafley might be saving his job.
It's true.
And Dino Babers might be losing his job. Mm-hmm. And if BC wins that game, I don't know how they can continue with Dino.
Yeah, it seems like Syracuse does a similar thing every year where they start pretty well and they kind of fall off a cliff.
It would be great if Dino was the right guy and it worked with him, but I think that there is overwhelming evidence that it's not working. They've been, the ACC screwed them with the schedule.
They did.
And when you think about Virginia Tech, you got to play Clemson, then at Carolina, at Florida State, open date, at Virginia Tech on a Thursday night.
It's tough. It's a gauntlet, man.
I mean, who looked at that and said, yeah, that's fair. Oh, and Louisville doesn't have to play. I mean, they play Virginia Tech at home. They don't have to go to Blacksburg. They have to play Carolina, Clemson, FSU. It's just ridiculous. But anyway, the Saturday games, Notre Dame at Clemson is obviously very, very interesting. Dabo's comments this week have put them front and center in the news. I actually love what Dabo said.
100%. He's
totally with him 100%.
He's speaking the truth. Yeah.
Speaking the truth. I'm a believer, and you know this, that I've had interactions before, and I've had stuff where I told coaches and communicated to coaches through secondary parties that you have every right to criticize us. You have every right to go into a press conference, and if you don't like something that Jacob Turner wrote, you can go after Jacob Turner in the press conference. I got no problem with that. No. If a fan is being completely unrealistic and diplomatically rude as hell, like that caller, then I think you can go after him. I have no problem
100%.
with that.
100%.
I have no problem with it.
Me either.
So I totally support Dabo with what he said, but he's going to have more to talk about in the negative because his team's going to lose Saturday.
Yeah, I don't think they. I keep expecting them to figure it out, but they just suck offensively, man. They just have nothing.
If you cannot move the ball through 8 games, you cannot move the ball.
Yeah, man. Period. It's interesting because they look damn good. You know, Klubnik came in against Carolina in the ACC championship game. I know it was only one game, but good Lord, he looked so good in that game. And then he's just been
was that an indictment on Carolina more than we realized?
Yeah, I mean, Carolina was. I was on the field for that game. Carolina, it was not a game after Ugolo. I can't even pronounce his name. Went out and Klubnik came in. I mean, Carolina had no answers. Torch, yeah, DJU just got
DJU. Hey, Oregon State's ranked.
I know. We're doing pretty well over there.
But he's not having a great year. He's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a chance Clemson doesn't go to a bowl.
Yeah, we talked about that last week.
If they lose to Notre Dame, that's 5. They lose to Carolina at 6, and they got to go to Williams-Brice, even though South Carolina's not very good. Coaches will tell you throughout the record books, I know it's a trite cliche thing to say, but you really do, especially if you can't move the ball.
I mean, would you be betting on Clemson to go to South Carolina and win based on how they're playing right now? I know South Carolina's not great, but I don't think I would take that bet. I think I'd probably bet on South Carolina, to be honest with you.
If you don't move the ball, then you give yourself no room for error, as the pick 6 at Carter Finley showed.
Yeah, exactly.
No room for error. So I think the league would love to see Clemson win, but they're not going to. What was the other one? Georgia Tech at Virginia.
We're skipping Campbell in North Carolina. Watch the UNC football show.
We are. Yeah, we did. Yeah, watch football show for that. The last 2 teams Carolina's played, and they both beat them.
Mm-hmm.
I think Georgia Tech's going to win this game. I really like what Brent Key's doing there.
Yeah,
that's a different team. They're so much more physical. They're so much faster. They play with great confidence. There's a club that has had some really bad losses, and they haven't let it beat them down.
Mm-hmm.
Key's done a really nice job lifting them up. If he can recruit there, I think that he's going to have some pretty good success. So I think they go into Charlottesville and get that win. That's probably best case scenario for Carolina. Any win Virginia gets in the league is bad for the league. You want Georgia Tech to get to a bowl, so this would give them a fifth win and get them one step closer to a bowl. And you want them winning for a while and playing with some confidence. That'll be really interesting because Georgia has to go there at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no.
And I'm not saying that. I'm not saying anything other than that would be interesting. I'd like to see what a confident Georgia Tech team stringing together positive performances can do, how long they can stick around in a game like that.
Yeah.
As far as these games affecting Carolina, you want Duke to win. You want Syracuse to win. You want, I would say, Georgia Tech, and you want Clemson to win.
Yeah. You're 100% agree. You definitely do. When you look at who Carolina's played and who they obviously still having to play Clemson later on this year, I think, that's a no-brainer looking at those 4 games. AJ, real quickly, I'm going to veer off course. I want to ask you, because we haven't talked about it yet, and I haven't talked even to you one-on-one on this. What was the atmosphere like in Atlanta? Because on TV, for the snippets that I did see, I had to go back and rewatch it because I was at a wedding like I talked about. It was like, this crowd looks pretty good. And then they'd zoom out, and I'm like, oh, like quarter of the stadium's empty. This is weird. Like, what was the vibe?
The home side was full, and you never see the home side on TV there.
Yeah.
The home side was full. The student section was awesome.
I thought so. That's what it felt like that on TV. Yeah.
The visitors side, they got to do something about it. I mean, they had 35,000. You got to do better than that, but there's a lot of apathy around that program.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. They should be more excited now. I've got to tell you, first time I've ever experienced students storming the field after beating North Carolina.
True. I forgot about that. Yeah.
I don't know if that's the first time I'd say. I may have happened in 96. The first game I ever covered was the loss at UVA.
Mm-hmm.
The Keldorf interception game.
Mm-hmm.
I think Virginia fans may have stormed the field after that game. That was back when that rivalry was really, really heated.
AJ, I've got a game for you.
They had to put a bunch of cops behind Carolina's bench because UVA fans were throwing liquor bottles at the bench.
I got a game for you. I was on the field for this one.
They need to bring that stuff back.
Yeah,
by the way, that made it more fun.
Yeah, it makes it.
God, I would love to see Georgia Tech and Virginia full again. There was a time when they were. Not
Virginia, yeah, 100%. No, you're 100% right. I got a game for you because I was on the sidelines for this. A couple years ago, Carolina losing at State, epic Carolina collapse, Cam Kelly getting, not going to say mossed in the end zone, but two bad possessions. State did storm that field because I remember walking off that field thinking I was going to get assaulted by a State fan or someone on Carolina's sideline was going to get assaulted by a State fan based on how pissed off and I guess excited at the same time that State fans were. That's the only one I think I can remember.
Did they storm it?
Was it a full storm? I don't know. I don't necessarily remember.
But there were people
running on the field for sure.
That 100%. Was a full storm the other night.
Yeah, that was a full storm. As soon as the game's over, everybody's on it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's the only game I can
the atmosphere. I thought the atmosphere is pretty good, but it also helps. It's an open air press box. So you hear the crowd. Most places it's not. Virginia's open air. Obviously, Syracuse, you're already indoors. There's no cover. Those are the three places in the league where it's fully open air and you can hear the environment. I thought it was really good that's as much noise as 35,000 people are going to make.
Mm-hmm.
They have a lot to cheer about.
3/4 full?
No, I mean, it's
a little over half full.
Oh, no. The place seats like 47.
Okay, so it was close to capacity because I just remember they zoomed out.
All the empties were on the visitor side, so TV showed all the empties.
Okay. Better atmosphere than I thought then.
It looked good. Like 50,000. I can't remember what Bobby Dodd holds.
Probably close to 50, I would think.
It's around 50. No, it's 55. It holds 55,000. That's right. Okay. It holds 55,000. So they had a lot of empties, but it's that side of the stadium and then the upper deck. That upper deck is like a skyscraper. It's kind of curious. Mm-hmm. It's not as bad as the monstrosity that Maryland put up, but it's kind of weird. Mm-hmm. They had a lot of empties, but the home side was full, and the students were great. Mm-hmm. The students were two things about games at Georgia Tech I love. I love when they come out on the field and they're led by the Ramblin' Wreck, the car.
Yeah, that's cool.
And the cheerleaders are hanging out of the car. The other thing is at the end of the third quarter when the band does the Budweiser song and the students sing the Budweiser. That's great. And they're going up and down. That's always fun there.
No, that's fantastic. Yeah, I had to ask because I got mixed feelings on. I was like, sometimes the student section looked really good, but they zoom out and I'm like, man, it's great. It's kind of empty. So,
well, they had all day to get liquored up. Trust me, because I got to campus, it was still an hour and a half before I got in the stadium because you know how it is there.
Oh, dude, I ever.
So I got to see a lot of the tailgating, and the people were. This was 3 hours before game time. People were already good and liquored up.
I remember my trip to Georgia Tech a few years ago. I think it was Mac's first game there, and. I always remember it because I remember asking we asked some guy, some security people who, they don't know anything about the stadium, but it stood out because we asked them. I was like, how do you get to the press box? And I don't know. And it was like, okay, appreciate the help. It was funny. It was like, I have no idea how to get. It took us 20 minutes to get to the press box that day. I remember that. It was
a long walk. It's the same parking. It's a long walk, but
even when we got in the stadium, nobody. We asked multiple people. Nobody knew how to get to the press box.
I asked a parking guy after I'd already been walking like 15 minutes because I thought I've been there a lot before, but they changed the parking. Remember 2 years ago, they played at the Dome. They didn't play on campus. So I asked some parking guy where it is. He pulls up his phone and looks it up on his GPS. Where's the stadium, dude?
It's on brand, man. That's on brand. We asked multiple people. No one knew how to get to the press box.
You don't see media relations people. It's, Georgia Tech's different. It's a great place to watch a game. And I recommend it to fans. I call it the Wrigley Field of college football. And I had R.L. Bynum sitting next to me. He's a big Cubs fan. He appreciated the Wrigley Field.
Oh, I'm sure he did. I'm sure he did like that. And if he appreciates it, as big of a Cubs fan as he is, and I guess it's an accurate comparison. So, AJ, let's move on to the rest of these games. We'll talk about the final 3, and then we'll dive into the non-conference after that. Florida State at Pittsburgh, 4th-ranked FSU, 3:30 p.m. kickoff in Acrisure Stadium in Pittsburgh. That's an intriguing matchup. I expect Florida State to beat the doors off Pittsburgh because they're a bad football team. Virginia Tech at 13th ranked Clemson. This is an intriguing game for me, AJ. I have a good buddy of mine. Shout out Mead. Big Virginia Tech fan. I actually went to a VT Carolina game back in 2013, I think, or 2014 when they played up there with him. Used to have season tickets and whatnot. And I was texting him yesterday, and he was saying, and I didn't even realize this really. I mean, I did, but I kind of forgotten about it. This is the game. This is a game for second place in the league, and I'm like, how the heck is Virginia Tech competing for second place in the league? It's amazing, but big time matchup in Louisville. I expect Louisville probably wins that game, but I mean,
are you talking about in 2013?
I think it was 2013.
Well,
yes.
Virginia Tech was probably the best program in the league for a while during that time.
They were good.
That was the game where Marquise kind of took over at quarterback. Played
yes,
a lot.
I believe so.
Sort of the turning point. Marquise took over at quarterback that game.
I can't remember what
Virginia Tech was really good back during that period. They were really good back in that time. That was that was toward the end of the Beamer era.
Still, yeah, exactly. But I remember I always liked going up to Blasberg.
Hokies were good. When I was with Fox, I had to do a lot of Virginia Tech and Clemson stuff. I spent a lot of time going to both places. I went both places more than anywhere else for a few years. Mm-hmm. And I gained an appreciation for the crowd up there and how passionate they are. And that's back when they were good. Yeah. And they were a very polished football team, man. They crossed their T's and dot their I's. They 100%. They didn't always have the most talent, but man, they would bring it. And talk about making run fits. Bud Foster's defenses made their run fits.
Oh, 100%.
No doubt about it.
Lunch pail defense for sure. And then last matchup, Miami at NC State. Another intriguing matchup, 8 p.m. kickoff in Carter Finley. Can State win back-to-back games at home over some pretty solid ACC opponents? We'll see. Miami coming off just a scraping by in overtime last week to Virginia. So can they go up to NC State and win? It'll be an interesting one to see. That's the only night game this week in the league, at least on Saturday. I think State probably wins that game, but I'm not incredibly confident in that because I'm still not I still don't really know what to expect with State. I think they look okay at times, and I think sometimes they look horrible. So
who in this league are you confident? I made a comment in the press box the other night that if you exclude FSU, if this league, if each team were individual human beings, they would all be institutionalized.
For sure. Florida State's the only team.
Who are you confident in?
Florida State.
No idea. Yeah, outside of them.
I actually think Louisville.
And you know what? They aren't a polished product every week either. They go through periods where they're not very impressive.
Yeah.
I don't. When you look at these games, I think Florida State's going to annihilate Pitt. Lost in all the stuff that's been going on in college football are Narduzzi's comments after the game last week that his players were commenting on Twitter. Yeah. Raised eyes and stuff like that.
He basically said they went out in the portal and got a bunch of horrible football players. Basically what they
said. Yeah. Well, how are they going to play for him when Florida State coming in?
He should write a book on how to lose a program real quick because that's not the comment you want to come out in.
Yeah, you just can't do that. That's why when people want Mac to come in the press conference and beat the hell out of his team, like, guys, you got to understand. You're passionate. You're however many miles away. You don't have to deal with this. It's not your job to fix it.
No.
Are you just going to go berate people in your environment if you want them to do better? No, generally not. Sometimes you have to go to extremes to send a message and shake the tree, but he's not going to do that publicly.
Yeah,
Narduzzi did it, and he's going to pay the price for it. Yeah. They're going to get annihilated.
Yeah, I think they get.
What were the other ones you had?
I'll read them out to you. Florida State at Pittsburgh. Already talked about that one. Virginia Tech at Louisville. That's the most intriguing matchup for me, probably of the weekend, just because of what it means.
I just think Virginia Tech winning games and looking like they might contend is really bad for the league because they got annihilated at Rutgers. They got annihilated at Marshall. I know they're a different team, and Brent Pry deserves some props for that, but they were bad. That might be, if they win, that's an indictment on the league. I do think Louisville will win. I think Louisville's got something going right now.
I do too. That's the other team I'm relatively sold on in the league. I think
I want to talk about Louisville in a second and Carolina, because we do these things to see how it relates to Carolina. And obviously they're the two that are most in contention still, I think, for that number 2 spot to see who plays FSU and Charlotte.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll draw a little correlation there in a minute. Miami at State, I'm just glad the State gets a night game here.
Yeah, finally, right?
Carolina fans don't want to hear this, but Carter Field Lake night's awesome.
Yeah, it's a good environment.
It is. And Miami going there at night, that's awesome. The Clemson-NC State game should have been the night game on the ACC network. It shouldn't have been on the CW. Carolina-Georgia Tech should have been on the CW instead at 2 o'clock. But I like State in this game. Miami's won the last 2 weeks at overtime.
Yeah, scraping by.
And they're scraping by. I don't think they're that good. They're obviously not very well coached. I think State will take care of business, and again, they'll make their run fits, and they'll win a low-scoring game. The Louisville Carolina thing, it's interesting because if Louisville they go to Miami the following week, next week. So if Louisville goes down to Miami and loses, which can happen, the very same Miami team I think will lose at State. I think can beat Louisville next week because that's the way the league rolls. If they do that, Carolina's in great shape if they win out because it's head-to-head for that second spot. Well, they don't play each other, so you compare who they played. And Louisville lost to Pitt, Carolina beat Pitt, right? Carolina lost to Georgia Tech, Louisville beat Georgia Tech. But think about this. Louisville now beat Duke. Carolina's got to beat Duke. Louisville beat State. Carolina's got to beat State. So somewhere in there, I have to see some of the other common opponents that they have, but Carolina's got to have a better record against common opponents. So really, Carolina fans should just root for Louisville to lose this week and lose next week. And if they have 3 losses, Carolina can slide in there with 2 losses.
Agreed. Yeah, it's a good way to look at it.
I need to go back and look at that full schedule. I haven't done it yet because this week has been more about processing last week and coming up with some other things. Plus, we got basketball starting. But maybe after this week, when they get back into league play, I'll do a piece on here's exactly what they need to happen and here are what some of the parameters are.
Yeah, they're still not out of it.
But I would say that Louisville's the first option right now, obviously. Carolina would be the second one.
The problem with Carolina is they were in a position not too long ago where they controlled their own destiny. Now they don't. They got to rely on a lot of other people things to happen for them to have a chance, and they have to keep winning, which they're
well. You control your own destiny to a degree. Other teams have a say in that too.
Carolina just has to win.
Just gotta, like you said, like
other teams,
like you have astutely said all along, just be an average defensive team. Every week, be an average defensive team, and they're going to win.
It's my motto, AJ, and I think it's rearing its head again. I've been saying it, and I keep telling Carolina fans, I'm going to keep saying this forever. Carolina is a under MAC. It's very simple. If they have an above average defense, they can be a very, very good football team. If they don't, they're going to struggle. They're going to lose games they shouldn't lose, and that's just it's been the theme the last 5 years. So I'm going to keep saying that.
All right, what are the 3 non-conference games?
3 non-conference games. We'll talk about those right here, AJ. You got South Carolina hosting Jacksonville State. Should be a win for South Carolina. Minnesota versus Illinois. Intriguing matchup because Minnesota's having a pretty good year, second in their division right now.
They're second in their division. Yeah. What's their conference record?
Let me pull it up real quick because I just had it pulled up. Give me 1 second.
Are they 3-2 in the league?
They are 3-2, 5-3 overall, tied with Iowa.
And Iowa's 4-1.
Iowa is 6-2, 3-2 in the conference as well.
3-2, yeah.
Yeah,
okay. And Minnesota owns a tiebreaker. Who's in first in that division?
It's I'll read it off to you right here. You got 4 teams that are 3-2 in that division: Iowa, Minnesota, Nebraska, and Wisconsin, all 3-2 in the league.
Wow, what a crap show that is!
I know, right? Michigan, Ohio State on the other side.
That's worse than the ACC Coastal. So Minnesota has the tiebreaker over Iowa because they won there. I don't think they played Wisconsin yet.
I don't believe they have.
And I think they lost to Nebraska, right? I'm not sure.
No, they barely beat Nebraska early on.
Barely beat Nebraska. Okay, that's right. So they have the tie. That's right. They beat them in the opener.
They play Wisconsin final game of the season, AJ.
So if they beat Wisconsin, if they don't even, they might be the favorite to win that division.
Yeah, they do. They have to play,
and then
get
completely steamrolled by Ohio State.
Yeah, they have to play Ohio State. But they do play Purdue in Wisconsin, so very winnable games besides that one. Yeah, in Illinois,
they're going to win. I'm telling you, they're going to win. They're going to win 8 games.
I think they have a very legitimate chance of doing that. Yeah, I think they really do.
That's an indictment on that.
It has a little bit more better teams because you got Michigan, you got Ohio State, you got Penn State on the other side. Michigan State's been good in the past. They sucked this year, but overall, it kind of reminds me of the ACC this year because the ACC is just so top heavy. You got Florida State, who's really good. You got Louisville, who's pretty dang good. And you had Carolina, who we all thought had a chance to do something. They've now fallen off a cliff a little bit. It's just such a top heavy league. Everybody below it's just who knows what.
Yeah, but they pounded a team that could play in the Big Ten title games.
I know. And credit to Carolina for doing that.
The ACC's got a winning record against the Big Ten and SEC, if that matters.
Just a very top heavy league again.
So Minnesota hosts Illinois. They should win that game. Illinois has been I thought Belima was going to do a better job there than he's done
1-4
far.
in the league,
Yeah, that's a tough place to win.
Last place in the division. So.
Yeah, a lot of apathy.
Let me double check.
Jacksonville. That's a significant difference from Jackson State.
It's not Jackson State. It's Jacksonville State, the Gamecocks. 7-2.
Okay, so it's the Gamecocks versus the Gamecocks. Jacksonville State's not bad. So they're
7-2.
They're transitional, I guess. They're transitional, or maybe they fully are FBS now. They won some games.
Yeah,
they got an offense. They can move. Boy, I'll tell you, if Beamer loses that one,
2-6.
Yeah,
I didn't realize South Carolina was that bad.
Yeah, they're a mess. They're a mess. They were, and Beamer, they can lose that game. And then App State plays Marshall, right?
Yeah, at home. So
at home, they ought to win.
App State's
Marshall clobbered the Hokies, and they put 40 up on the Wolfpack. So
and they're 4-4.
The Wolfpack didn't really make their fits in that game.
No, but they're 4-4. I thought Marshall was a little bit better than that.
Yeah, I think
the games they've won.
Yeah, I think Marshall beats App.
I think they do too. App State's struggling. I know Carolina fans don't want to hear us talk about App State, but we're going to talk about them for a second. They're a team that is in a little bit of a weird position because they were the darlings of that league since they made the transition, and now they're not. Especially with some of the
you're an App guy. You're an App grad. You're not an App fan. You're an App grad.
No, grad.
You keep an eye on them. You talk to a lot of App guys. Have we reached a
perspective? Probably, because I know a lot of fans are just done with Sean Clark, and I don't think he's done a very good job since he's taken over. Like I said, App State was in a really good position in that league, and I mean, they didn't skip a beat when they transitioned, AJ. I mean, they were winning bowl games, they were winning leagues. I mean, and now
Satterfield had a little bit of a dip, but he got it going.
And then this year they're kind of up and down, but I remember looking.
Should he go back? Should they hire him? Because they don't like him at Cincinnati. Cincinnati not playing well, and Louisville playing well. It's just a bad look for Satterfield. He looks totally out of place at Cincinnati.
He does. I think his level. I don't want to say his level is App State, but I think App State's kind of the perfect fit for him. And I think he just did. I was in school when he was there, and they had a fantastic football team. Man.
If I'm Cincinnati and he wants to go back to App and finish out there, I let him loose out of the buyout.
I think App's a great job. I know the money's not as great, but you're talking about a town that lives in a school that lives and breathes football. Might as well be the only sport there. I mean, it's the town shuts down on football game days. It's a great atmosphere. They have sellout damn near every game. I mean, it's a very attractive place for a head coach. Again, it's the problem is the money's just not there. You get an offer from Louisville and you go.
Well, he's already made money. He's already made money.
Yeah. I think it'd be great if he came back that, but I think
you still get $1 million a year if you're App's coach.
Yeah, so. But to answer your question, AJ, I would say from what I know and from what I've seen and heard from majority of App State fans are just not sold on Sean Clark, and I think a lot of people just want him gone.
All right, so Minnesota's going to beat Illinois.
Yeah,
I think South Carolina is going to get a scare.
I think they probably win, but I think it's close. Yeah,
I think they're going to get a scare, like 27-20.
Something like that. Yeah.
I think App's going to lose to. I think App's going to lose to Marshall.
I agree with you. The App game is the toss up for me. I think the other two I'm pretty confident in. I'll go with App State. I'll back my alma mater here. I think they beat Marshall. I'm not convinced of that. I don't bet, so I'm not betting on that game, but I'll back App here because I think it's a coin toss in that game. You got two just kind of average football teams. It's at home for App. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt.
I think they're less than average. I think they're less than average.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, when you look at the league they play in and the level they're at, they're below average football teams. Yeah, and App State's had a quarterback issue too.
And one of them took the Tar Heels to double overtime in Keenan among the Pines.
I know, man. I know. What a year it's been for the Tar Heels. What a year it's been for the league as a whole, really. I mean, it's just an up and down one. And again, I think it's a very top heavy ACC. That's how I describe it.
Like I said, take away Florida State. If the rest of the teams in the league were individual human beings, they would all be institutionalized.
Yeah, 100%. Let me ask you this, AJ. We're going to wrap this up in a second. Is Clemson being mediocre good or bad for the league as a whole? Because I think you can look at it two different ways. There's an opportunity for another program to kind of emerge like Florida State has, but it's also bad that, last 10 years, Clemson's dominated, won national titles, just won every conference championship you could win pretty much. And now they've kind of fallen off a cliff all of a sudden. Is that good or bad in your opinion?
Well, it's never bad when teams aren't very good. Or it's never good when teams aren't very good.
As a whole.
I think you need Clemson to matter in a good way.
They just made the conference kind of boring though, because it was just like, well, Clemson's going to win the league and they're going to blow somebody out in the championship game every year.
But maybe Florida State now does that. Who knows? I think the ACC could have its way. Clemson, Florida State, Miami, Virginia Tech, North Carolina.
All top 25 teams.
Louisville and Georgia Tech would all matter. And I say Georgia Tech because there's a crap load of history there.
Yeah, it's good football.
And that they would all matter. Louisville, if it matters, they will draw. I mean, they're still trying to catch on right now. I think Carolina gets a lot of attention. Carolina gets overrated sometimes because there's such a brand that it's kind of easy to see when they do well. Mm-hmm. They rarely ever fly completely under the radar in football. If they're good, people are like, oh, it's North Carolina. Sort of like UCLA. When UCLA is pretty good in football, they tend to kind of, because they have a brand.
Yeah, they get overhyped.
And Miami being 80% of what it once was, Clemson being 80, 90% of what it once was during that stretch with Dabo, Florida State being about where they are now, at 80, 90% of what they were under Bobby. Those things matter. Carolina being a top 25 annually, Louisville being there. I kind of think that Syracuse too. Syracuse was really good in the 90s and 80s. Like there's a lot of football history there. And I've stood next to like the Ernie Davis statue, for example. The Jim Brown statue. It's amazing stuff.
Oh, yeah.
They have a lot of history and tradition there. I do think that if they got good again and there was apathy was removed from the fan base, they would fill that place and it'd be a great environment.
Wow,
there are places in the league like that. I wish Pittsburgh had its own stadium and 50,000 seats and they drew. There's a lot of history there too. There's a lot of places in this league that need to do well consistently. And if they got better fan support and had better environments, it would really change the perception of this league. Mm-hmm. Miami and Pitt both need stadiums. Mm-hmm. I know it's easier for Miami. I've heard that they thought about buying up some houses in the neighborhood around campus and building a stadium there. Pitt's a little bit different because of the way it's very hilly. I mean, you're not a lot of campus, you're going up hills, down hills. And the basketball arena now is where the football stadium used to be. There's not a lot of places to do it, but if they could figure it out, do a lot of excavating, build something there, it would make a lot of sense because it's such a long drive for the students, especially at Miami.
I'm never a fan of that. Never a fan of
there are places in the ACC where football has mattered a great deal in the past. And you need to rekindle that. Yeah. And the problem is the league needs to rekindle that with a lot of schools at the same time. And it hasn't quite done that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you're asking me a question. No, I don't think it's good. I think that I think other teams finally beating them is good for those schools because I'm telling you, Clemson beating them the other night, they didn't care that they were 4-3 going in that game. They beat Clemson again. The State beat Clemson for the second straight time at home. That matters.
It's like beating Carolina in basketball. It doesn't really matter how good or bad.
The 14 and 19 team. If you beat Carolina, Clemson won in Chapel Hill that year. They celebrate that like it was a championship,
like a national championship. Yeah.
They don't care that it was the second worst team in school history.
No,
it doesn't matter. If Carolina wins in Death Valley in a few weeks, they're going to treat that like a big damn deal too, and they should. So
100%, definitely should.
Yeah, but I do think that you want teams good. You looked at the CFP rankings yesterday, and there's 2 ACC teams in it.
Yeah, it's not good enough.
They've cannibalized themselves. You had Carolina completely crapped on the league in themselves, and Duke's fallen off. Clemson's not there anymore, so it looks bad. I mean, Louisville's your team that's there, and we don't know if they're any good. Mm-hmm. We think they're good, but we don't really know.
Man, if you're the heads up in the ACC, Carolina over the last couple of years probably frustrates the heck out of you. Like, yeah, finally Carolina's going to do something. They're relevant, and then oh god, they're out of the top 10 in 9 days. Oh Jesus, it's just they got to frustrate some people higher up, man. They just keep knocking on that door, AJ, but ain't nobody answering.
Going from top 10 to not ranked in 9 days is falling over a cliff, don't you think?
I think so. I don't think you were out of pocket phrasing it the way you did. I understand why Mac got frustrated. But
I couldn't. I wanted to come up with something. I was just trying to get. I needed a response, so I didn't want to be offensive or anything. When you go,
AJ, when you go from 2 weeks before talking about how you can play significant games, and then 2 weeks later you're lost 2 games to a Virginia team that's won 2 games this year. Georgia Tech is not very good.
You need Campbell coming into town to help you regroup.
Yeah, you 100% do. Yeah, you're 100% right about that.
That sums her up, baby.
Yeah, AJ. Last question. I just remembered this. I know they honored Paul Johnson at the Georgia Tech game this past Saturday. Fan or not a fan of Paul Johnson's Georgia Tech football team?
He was in the press box.
Fan, you love him, but everybody in the league used to hate him.
Yeah, first of all, they did a press conference. He did a press conference in the press box. I thought it was pretty neat because he was smiling at the media, and he was the ultimate curmudgeon.
I thought
who just put a heck. He had media member pin cushions. He probably used to put pins in all the time.
Voodoo.
Voodoo stuff. I actually had no problem with what he did for a while when it worked, because when that offense worked and it was unstoppable, it was an absolute thing of beauty. I'm a big run the ball, go around the edge. I love lineman pulling and nailing, kicking out defensive ends and
shot blocking.
I love that stuff. Look, we were talking the other day over at the football center, and I said, I never got a holding penalty called on me in my life, but I got a few chop blocks.
Yeah. Got
a few of those. We used to call them crab blocks back. You just kind of go and crab a guy in his knee.
I like that better.
But I liked when they played well.
Mm-hmm.
When the Roddy Jones period, he's a really good analyst, broadcaster on the ESPN ACC network, ACC radio and Sirius XM. He's great to listen to. During his time, when they would have these A-backs that would just run people over, man.
Oh man, they were just such
fun.
Everybody hated. I just remember how much people across the league hated Georgia Tech because of the way they played. So I had to ask you. I was like, I wonder if you were a fan.
I was thinking the other day with him being up there about how, for example, Larry Fedora, they would spend like an hour in the spring and an hour twice in the fall working against a triple option.
I know.
And then if they had an off week before they played Georgia Tech, even if Georgia Tech was a month later, they would spend 2 days, 45 minutes to an hour working on triple option.
It's always struggled.
Because and if you ever had to play them on a Thursday, you had no chance of winning.
No chance. Yeah, it was all about bye week before Georgia Tech. We had
I do think at the same time it's not necessary in a Power 5.
No,
and it's damaging. If you hire guys doing that, that means you're embracing the idea that when he leaves, you're going to absolutely suck for a while.
Yeah, be suck for 5-10 years probably.
And then if you hire a total gimmick coach like Jeff Collins, it's going to be even worse. So
yeah, they've struggled. Great when he's there if you're a Georgia Tech fan. Always tough when somebody like that.
He ran 6 plays.
Unbelievable. Yeah, they didn't throw the ball, but I just always remembered it seemed like anytime Georgia Tech played North Carolina to Paul Johnson, they were guaranteed to throw a touchdown pass.
68-50 game, a backup quarterback from Durham. I think he's from Durham for Georgia Tech, threw for 348 yards or something.
I know. I remember that game. I was there. 99%
I covered
sure
that
I was
game.
at that game. Yeah.
I covered that game. Highest scoring game still in ACC history. 2 weeks later, I covered NC State at Clemson, and it was 65-47 or something.
Jesus Christ.
Second highest scoring game in AC history. I was like, what am I doing with my life watching
you're like,
this
man,
crap?
I can't. Yeah, you're like, I don't know if I can keep doing this, man. This is too much. 100+ points in a game. That's.
I started thinking about door-to-door sales after watching all that.
We talked about it early in Mac's tenure, AJ. We were like, good Lord, man, I'd kill to cover like a 10-7 game. That'd be fantastic. I still would find a few of those.
You would have to pay me an exorbitant amount of money to go cover the Iowa Hawkeyes.
Yeah. You don't want to cover football like that. No, you're right. You don't want to cover it every week, but every once in a while, give me some of that. Give me a defensive struggle.
I'd have to commit crimes and be sentenced to that.
Be banished, AJ. Be banished to. It is what it is, AJ. We'll wrap this show up because we've managed to derail this one a little bit. I had some questions I had to ask you. We haven't talked.
Do you think anybody's still listening?
Yeah, there's somebody. Yeah, There's somebody still listening.
The first person that tells us they're still listening right now, I'll give you 3 free months.
Oh, man. Hop on board.
THI.
Hop on board. Get over to
Send
Twitter.
us a DM.
Get over
First
Twitter
one
right
to
now.
DM us. Got to send us a Twitter DM. First one to do it. You get 3 free months.
Do it.
Trial.
There's somebody watching. Somebody's going to DM you, AJ. And if they don't, then I wouldn't.
It's someone who is busy and he just left it on, forgot about it. And they'll hear that.
100%.
Like, these guys are still talking.
Yeah, they just said, wait, what did you say? 3 free months? Oh, man.
What the hell are they talking about? What a waste of time that is.
Oh, I love it. Well, if you're still watching, she doesn't.
They're talking about Iowa? What the hell are they talking about Iowa
Of course,
for?
man. This is that's why I like this show, because we just kind of talk about whatever we want to talk about, which is something we don't often get to do. So hope you guys are enjoying it. If you're still watching, send us a DM.
Someone will be critical.
Yeah, get those.
Should have been talking about Carolina the whole time.
We try to tie some Carolina in, but a little bit tougher now that they've lost 2 games. Not as important as it used to be. But hey, AJ, I'm gonna leave the people with this. Carolina, mathematically and on paper, can still be in the ACC championship game. I'm leaving it there. Leaving you guys with some optimism.
They still play in the Orange Bowl.
Yeah,
they still play in the Orange Bowl.
A lot to play for, AJ. I hate to keep saying that. I said it last week, and they went and lost, which made me look stupid. There's still a lot to play for. A lot of games left.
It made them look a lot worse than it made you look. Trust me.
That's a fact. That's a fact. Come on, Carolina. Just win some football games for me so people won't think I'm an idiot on here.
You're not the one that did the style points drop like I did.
Yeah, it's all right, man. Hey, it's all right, AJ. Everybody and their mother was high on Carolina 2 weeks ago. And if especially Carolina fans.
Herb Street said they were different.
Eh?
He said they were a CFP contender. They were different.
You ain't not the only one, AJ. I mean, there was no reason to believe they weren't 2 weeks ago. Now there's plenty of reasons to believe they're not, but unfortunately, that's college football and that's Carolina football.
Back down that trail. Let's stop.
Yeah, we need to stop immediately. Let's get out of here before we get in trouble. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Another episode of This Week in the ACC. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell too. And real quickly too, AJ, I didn't even mention Underdog Fantasy, which shows how derailed we've gotten this one. Big thank you to Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring this show. I'm gonna give you guys some quick information about it. Super easy to use. #1 fantasy app in the game right now. All you have to do is log in, pick whether your favorite players go higher or lower than what is listed. 2 to 5 different players is all you have to do that with, and you're in business. If you go 5 for 5, you can 20x your money. I'll give you a quick example I used in our last show. Sam Howell, let's say his stat line set it 200 passing yards this week. You can choose whether you think he's going to go higher or lower in the app. And if you hit, you win money. See a lot of people downloading Underdog as well. Big thank you. Keep downloading using that promo code HEEL, HEEL. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. Links in the description below. Must be 18 plus, and present in the state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Consider with your play. Call 1-800-522-4700 or visit ncpgambling.org. Again, use that promo code HEEL to get your deposit doubled by up to $100. Links in the description below. Big thank you to Underdog for sponsoring this show. And we're getting the heck out of here, AJ. Let's go. Yeah, go ahead.
I saw an Underdog Fantasy billboard in Atlanta last weekend.
Did you? I'm telling you, man, they're everywhere. I'm telling you, they're everywhere. I keep seeing commercials, Twitter ads. I mean, they are absolutely all over the place. #1 fantasy app in the game, fastest growing fantasy app in the game. So go get involved. UnderdogFantasy.com. Again, use that promo code HEEL. Get that deposit doubled up to $100. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.
Thanks.